what do you say to the people who may think that Bitcoin has hit a top or 100,000 is the ceiling and it may be too late to get in?
So I think those type of people, where their like thinking traps are, is they look at where Bitcoin came from, not where Bitcoin is headed, right? So if you're looking at a $2 trillion market cap, $900 trillion worth of assets in the world, and you just like realize like, okay, Bitcoin is not even bigger than the arts and collectible asset group. You know, like you don't think like this thing could be bigger than arts and collectibles or collectible cars, you know, like that's, you know, a few $1 trillion higher than where we're at now, or it's going to like start replacing some of the bond market or some of the stock market. So if you look at the market cap of all these assets and then you see Bitcoin's a little blip and you're like $2 trillion compared to $900 trillion worth of wealth, you know? And, so I think that that's what you have to see, the bigger picture. You have to see where it's headed and not where it's come from, you know? And in that, where people go wrong is they compare themselves to where they either seen Bitcoin before or what other people got in at it, right? So
yeah,
you don't want to go, oh, I bought Bitcoin at 100, but this person bought it at 50. Well, the person who bought it at 50 sees the person who bought it at 25, who's looking at the person who bought it at 8, who's looking at the person who bought it at 800, who's looking at the person $80. Like that's like an ego thing where you're comparing yourself instead of looking towards the future.
Chris, I'm a big research guy. Obviously, I saw your post the other day. You said Ethereum distraction, Bitcoin Cash distraction, Solana distraction, S&P distraction, Bitcoin only. When somebody has that level of conviction, I'm always interested to see like what is the research, what was the data point or the information that you saw that gave you that level of conviction?
So what it was is you start pricing things in the dollar, right? You price things in a dollar and everything looks like it goes up. So this was the exact moment where it clicked that everything was a distraction. So 30 years ago, the Argentine peso was 1-to-1 with the US dollar, right? So now let's take the US dollar out of this. So you just see the Argentine peso. So Troy, let's say that you have a company worth 10,000 Argentine pesos, right? Now we're going to fast forward to today. $1 is 1,000 Argentine pesos, right? So if your company that was worth 10,000 pesos 30 years ago, now it's going to look like it's worth $10 million, right? So if Rashad's an investor in your company, then he's going to be like, look, my company is growing. And then there's going to be some dude that's like, hey, bro, it's not really growing. Like, it's just keeping up with the inflation, right? Like, it's not really growing. It's not until you put the dollar back into the perspective, back into, the measurement, using the dollar as a measurement unit, that you'll see like, okay, your company was worth 10,000 30 years ago. Now it's worth 10 million, but it's still, worth the same amount of money once you compare it to the dollar, right? So all it's showing you is that asset was falling in comparison to the dollar, right? Something outside of the dollar, the peso system is measuring it. So I start looking at, money is a unit of measurement and it can measure how big or small an asset class is, right? So if we're just injecting more and more money into a system, then everything looks like it's growing, right? So Troy, your company that's now worth $10 million, well, then if you price it right back into the dollar, you'll see that it hasn't grown at all, right? So all the investors in your company, it looks like they're getting wealthier and wealthier and wealthier because they see the nominal value is going up, right? I bought it at 10,000. I bought into his company at 10,000 and now it's worth 10 million, right? When you put the dollar back in, then you go, oh, your company wasn't growing, bro, right? So that makes sense. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
Okay, so now you do the same thing with Bitcoin, or even if it's not Bitcoin, you can do it with gold, right? Something that just can't be easily created. So gold, you gotta, it takes man hours to mine gold, dig it out of the ground, right? So even if you were to go price these assets in gold, you'll start to see like, man, I'm not getting much more purchasing power out of investing into this or investing into that. So if you price the S&P 500 in gold, it's been trading sideways for 20 some years. If you price it in Bitcoin, it's falling, right? So I just changed my different unit of measurement.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what showed me like, man, these things may look like they're going up, but when I price it into what I deemed to be a good unit of measurement, Bitcoin, then everything is, it might go up in dollars, but it's not going up in actual value, you know? So that's how I started looking at it. And then I'm like, if you're not going to spend the time, energy, effort, you know, and do the research, and you're just buying things because other people are telling you to buy it, you're being distracted. You could just put your money in Bitcoin and go play basketball with your friends or something. So I just started looking at it like that.